Hello, Nia. Welcome to Sippin Sunday, the podcast. Let our listeners know what you're sipping on or what your favorite beverage is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nia Brown. I'm the author of So You Want to Be an Adult and also the owner of Adult Wannabe. I'm currently sipping on some Prosecco. That's actually my go-to drink all the time. So, cheers to everyone that loves a little bubbly.
Cheers with my empty cup.
What? It can't be empty. We're together with
Because
it.
I told you I had recorded multiple episodes today, so I finished all my juice. I didn't even have time to go downstairs, but I do have my water too. So,
Okay, we love a hydration, so I guess the water will do.
and then the next thing I always love to know about guests is what age do you feel like you became an adult if you reached that age yet?
Okay, for the first question, at what age did I feel like I became an adult child? I can have a funny story about this. So, my first job out of college, I worked for an apartment complex. A lot of my friends and some of my followers might know I worked at the Metropolitan over on Loch Raven in Baltimore, Maryland, and we had a time, baby. We used to cut up at the apartment. We used to take it far at that apartment. I feel like half of my friends and my family that have been to the Metro. I had a very a teal blue wall. And while I was there, I had two colleagues. One was Dina. Shout out to Dina. She's actually my ex-boyfriend's mama. And I had another colleague named Stephanie. But all three of us used to have like a lot of conversations. They were older than me, obviously, but we used to have conversations all the time, like, oh, you're a baby adult. Like we would, it was funny because I was in my 20s, Stephanie was in her 30s, and Dina was in her 40s. So all three of us were able to connect as women to have a conversation about what life was looking like for each of us in different stages of our lives. So they used to always tell me, like, girl, like, you're not a real adult. Like, you got some more time. But I mean, honestly, I feel like there is no end age on like when do you feel like an adult? Like the bills keep piling on. It doesn't stop. And I
No.
feel you continuously keep learning as you navigate through the journey of who you are as a person and who you are as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I want to say right now I feel like an adult, but it just be things that happen every day, all the time. You try not to crash out. So you just be really trying to persevere through all the things that navigate between work, between personal business, between everything, honestly. I think
Yes, I
that
agree.
being an adult doesn't stop. I don't think there's ever gonna be a real established age that you feel like, hey, like I'm here. I feel like most of us want to reach there. I feel like in our minds we'll be like, when I get this house, when I get this car, when I pay this debt off, when I do this, when I do that, then I'll be X, Y, and Z. But in reality, it never happens like that. And it's never like that.
No,
And
not at all.
think that if most of us acknowledge that, girl, boy, man, whenever you feel as though like you've reached a milestone, embrace it, accept it. It's like, hey, I went through X, Y, and Z. I wanted to achieve this and I did. So let me live in this moment, in this present day, to accept all the accolades, all the accomplishments that I've just thus achieved.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
feel like I don't think I mean, I'm an adult by default, but I feel like when you become an adult, and maybe this is kind of like, I don't know, a pivot. It's like when you become an adult, you feel like, damn, like it just keeps going. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, deep sigh. I enjoy being an adult. I don't enjoy what society has placed being an adult is.
Mm, I
Because
want.
I can't really see myself like I always say maybe I'll go back to like 18 or senior year of high school because I had a decent senior year of high school. I know some people are either like ready to run out of that place or they are like this was cool. So I can go back to either my senior year of high school, 21, 25ish. So I don't dislike being an adult. It's just the craziness that comes with being an adult.
Absolutely. And I think honestly, the responsibility, you have a responsibility to
Yes.
yourself. And when you really become of age, you have a responsibility to society. So it's like you're not trying to crash out on any of those
Duplicate
avenues. Like you're really trying to keep going strong. Like, hey, like I have to live up to XYZ expectations. I have to make sure that I am living by, whatever's going on, and that I'm not embarrassing myself. I'm not misrepresenting myself. I'm not misinterpreting anything that's going on, so that you can show up authentically as yourself and also be okay in the event that you end up getting judged. I feel like as an adult,
Yes.
you have to really cross the threshold of being okay if you're judged, if you're disliked, anything that might have something to do with being like negatively perceived. You have to kind of just eat it and own it. Like,
Exactly.
especially if you're going to be in our world. like, like you're an amazing like podcaster. You do a lot of,
Thank you.
you do a lot of things for the community. You do a lot of things in general. So it's like, if you're going to be in position, you have to absolutely just be prepared for it. Like, people might not agree with your mission. They not might just agree with you. They might not just not like you. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, when you become of age, when you can accept those things, it might be when you're an adult. And that might vary for each person.
I do think that comes with being an adult. Like, again, going back to like being an adult isn't bad. It's the responsibility and the expectations that you're not taught about and you're not prepared for that make it feel so hard. Because when you were saying about responsibility, every level of adulting or every new stage of adulting comes with a different responsibility that you didn't know. So you're like
Absolutely.
relearning and trying to understand stuff so many times. And for me, I mean, not, I guess like recently, but this year has been a decent year holistically compared to some other ones in these past 5 years of our world. But
It's been a
I do,
crazy 5 years. Like, it's
yes,
been insanely crazy.
but I
1000%.
do feel like that the different responsibilities that come about because I am only first responsible for myself and I'm like so grateful for that every day that like I don't have somebody depending on me because I can't depend on myself some days. Like I know I'm gonna get stuff done, but
But
I'm
you
just
have to show
like,
up. You got to show up every time. And if I don't know if you have children, but if you have children,
no.
you have to show up for them.
That's what I'm saying.
You're
Like,
scrambled in your brain, whatever's going on in your mind as an adult. You still have to show up for these kids. The kids, they can't
and
do it
that's
on
what
their
I'm
with their
saying.
children.
Like, I can't fathom like after the long days that I have having to come home and have to like do something for somebody else. Like that's not a
Mhm.
functioning adult. Like I can't do
I
that.
haven't
No.
put, and you know what, honestly, Amber, I have not put that into my own schedule. I have not imagined, I fan them and I desire, I fantasize, I think about it. Clearly, like, I'm a woman, I'm a heterosexual woman, so, I do want to get married to a man one day. But in this present moment where we're at today, I can't imagine having to put myself to the side and be there for a child. Like, I just dead
No,
ass can.
I agree more so because not that I don't think I can do it. I do think I would be a great mom. I just, like I said, dependent on myself some days is rough. So if somebody else is gonna have to depend on me and I still have to push through and all these other things, I'm like, this is crazy. Like this is crazy. And as I've gotten older and realized all the things that you have to do for yourself, I did grow in gratitude for my parents. I mean, I always am grateful for them and everybody on this podcast knows that those are my besties. We love them. Do they get on my nerves sometimes? Yes, but they're still, my ride or dies. They will show up when they need to for me.
Absolutely.
What did the journey look like for you to learn how to be an adult?
I would say that 2020 was a very pivotal year for me. I would say that 2020 made me look at life differently, and even outside of the pandemic, it made me look differently because was going through my own trials and tribulations. Like, granted, the pandemic was going on; it's affecting millions of people worldwide. So I'm adjusting to that, but I'm also adjusting to the fact that, hey, I'm new to the DMV world. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I relocated to Virginia, specifically Alexandria, Virginia. So I said, okay, I'm trying to get adjusted and acclimated to this new environment. This is a new city for me. This is a new, an entire new just division of people that I'm around. It was a cohort of a diverse community, which I truly enjoyed. Um, but I feel like when I got there, it took me so much out of my element that I was like, I have no other choice but to adapt and to grow with this because I'm no longer in an environment that is pacifying, and I'm no longer in an environment that is, I'm just no longer in a comfortable environment because I don't know this place. I don't
Yeah.
know these people. So I
Yeah.
think at that moment, I think 2020, and that's also the year I started writing my book. And I originally began writing So You Want to Be an Adult, just like, okay, I have, passive time. I don't want to just spend it doing nothing. I'm a writer. I went to school for writing. I went to Penn State for journalism. So I'm like, okay, well, let me utilize my time in a way that I know my efforts can be, maximized. And I began writing to How You Want to Be an Adult, So You Want to Be an Adult. Like, it started off as How You Want to Be an Adult. It started off as a guide like that. But then, life continued to happen for me. As
Life
I'm
does
writing
not
this,
stop.
things were happening in real time. And I said, dang, if I had the opportunity to tell someone what I know right now to save them from the heartache, from being broke, from doing all these things that put me in a not favorable position, in my opinion. I would love to provide someone with that opportunity. I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm someone that embraces being able to share my knowledge and share my experience with people to prevent them from doing any type of harmful damage to themselves or to other people. That's a very, very big passion of mine. I truly love being able to share what I've been through. I'm a very open book. I know that you have a copy of my book, and I know
Yes, I can't wait to read it.
Yes, can't wait for you too. But I was very, very candid in that. And, it was a little uncomfortable when I read it back because I was like, I'm letting people in on a lot of, personal things in my life. I told people I have ADHD as a Black woman, and I did not know that for my entire life. So being diagnosed with that at 26, 27 years old, and I'm trying to navigate the nuances of corporate America, not knowing that I essentially have a little bit of, neurodiversion that I don't even recognize.
Yeah.
So I'm to navigate through that while also still trying to appease whatever corporate, leadership I have going on. It was a lot to balance. And at that time, I was going through a lot, Like I was really going through a lot. I just couldn't understand why I couldn't focus. I couldn't understand why my peers were understanding information that was said to us 3, 4, 5 times, and it just was not clicking for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just was having a huge problem with it. I had a boyfriend at the time. I would be confiding in him. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand why I'm not understanding. And I'm someone that went to school 3 times. I've always been a A- B+ student. Like, I've always been someone that typically does extremely well at school. But when being an adult and being in the work life environment, that wasn't a hard adjustment for me. And I've really had to understand that I am a part of a working force. These people are I don't want to say leaders, but these people are people that are appointed to different positions that have more experience, which is why they're in those positions. They're not your mom. They're not your guidance counselor. They're not your therapist. These are all other humans that are just trying to do their job so that you can do your job.
You were hired to do a job that they felt like you're qualified for, but then you're having struggles trying to figure things out.
Really challenging. And I didn't recognize how challenging that could be. I really, really didn't. I underestimated it.
And so what helped you through getting the diagnosis? Because in our community that can very much be a stigma and challenge, although there should not be a stigma around it at all. So how did you navigate going about that process of scheduling the doctor's appointments and just really being like, okay, I need to figure something out about this?
I'm not someone that's necessarily I don't want to say the word ignorant, but I'm not someone that's easily embarrassed. I'm not someone that's easily, pushed aside or discouraged by learning information or understanding information. I recognize that I had something going on with me. I realized that I cannot concentrate the way that my peers are concentrating. I recognize that I had the same accolades. I went to the same schools. I went to the same, universities. I had the same credentials as my peers, but it's not grasping for me. So I wanted to find out why. And I'm also a very inquisitive person, and my friends and my family might say that I'm also a hypochondriac. But that also just kind of pushed me to find it out. Like, girl, is there an issue? Is there a problem? Like, is there something that's just not clicking? Like, what's not going on? So when I found out, I said, oh, I have ADHD. And I thought that it was a joke. I'm like, doesn't everybody have ADHD? And when I went to my psychiatrist, she was like, for one, everyone does not have ADHD. Some people might get distracted and they come back. But it's very, very different in the way that it appears in you. It's very different in the way that it appears in everyone that it impacts. So, don't take it lightly because that you have it and because that it might be common in other people. It's oftentimes undiagnosed, especially in Black women.
Yes.
So, Black women have a very, we have a tendency to have a million things at our to-do list. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to pick up my kids. It's an entire plethora of to-do lists for Black women to complete. And so most times, whichever way we navigate that, whether we're being, passive about it, whichever way we're, if we're being proactive, and we might get halfway through the list, but then you burn out and then you crash out and curse everyone out. It's ways that we navigate through things that people don't recognize if you're not a Black woman. And there are reasons for that. And like I said, it's really undiagnosed.
What age were you when you were experiencing this and started going through the process of going to the doctors and getting diagnosed?
I was about 27. Okay. I was definitely about 27 years old. I started feeling like I'm not a part of the community that I thought I was so embraced by. When I realized I had a boss at the time, like I said, I worked for Amazon Web Services for 4 years. Amazon is a very challenging place to navigate through, and that's just me being brutally honest. I was a Black woman in tech for a very, very long time. Being in tech and having to adjust with all the changes that are happening while in tech, it was, it was, I'm not gonna say it was weird, but it was weird because a lot of times tech is emerging in real time. So things that you're currently learning, or at least the things that you have learned, it might be completely different processes that you have to go through now that tech has emerged into X, Y, and Z. And people are depending on you because they're paying you so much money that you need to know what's going on, why is it happening, when is it going to happen? And you might still be trying to navigate like, well, maybe I'm still trying to figure it out with you. Like we're all trying to figure it out together. Because at the end of the day, Amazon was created about 20 years ago, yes, but Amazon was a bookstore online. It didn't really become the plethora that what Amazon all encompasses until about 10 years ago, maybe even 15. We'll say 2010, 2011, just to give them grace. But at the end of the day, like tech, the way that it is today, especially for that company, there were a lot of things and a lot of nuances that had to grow with that. And being, I feel like a Black woman that has to, hop into this position to say, hey, I need to know, what's going on with IPv4 acquisition. I need to know what's going on with X, Y, and Z for different tech, just compilates. Like you're just always on go. So a lot of the times it's so hard to concentrate on what, division.
Yeah.
Things happening nonstop all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure. Especially in the field and the work. And was that your first professional job out of school?
It wasn't. My journey is very, very interesting and I always love to share it. I can share it now if you don't mind.
Yes, of course. This is what the podcast is for. Go ahead.
Okay, yes, honey. So I graduated, like I said, I graduated from Penn State University in 2015. I came back home because, baby, I was broke. And I came back. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I came to go to the University of Baltimore. I graduated from there in 2019. At least I had 2 scholarships with Penn State. University of Baltimore gave me no scholarships.
And so you went to University of Baltimore.
I'm having in-state tuition again, so
yes. And what did you go to University of Baltimore for?
I went for my MBA. So I went for my Master's in Business Administration, and I had my specialization in marketing. I love marketing. My background for Penn State was journalism. So it kind of was a bridge of me being still able to be artistic in the way that I'm creative and making like creative and unique solutions because I love writing, but I also love trying to figure out the why. So me getting my MBA from UB was very, very, very like functional, especially in my everyday life. It was super helpful. But when I went to UB, I always worked. So I worked full time while going to grad school full time. I worked at this one place. It was a medical device company. We're just going to say they just weren't very, very nice to me. They were not very nice to me at all. They laid me off. I was like, dang, what does that mean? They gave me a severance package. I never even knew what a severance package was.
And that was your first professional job.
That was my first professional job. That's my first time in corporate. I was 23 years old. I worked for this corporate company in Columbia, Maryland. I was navigating from East Baltimore to Columbia, Maryland every day. Don't know if you know the commute, but I was navigating from Lock Raven Boulevard all the way up to Columbia every single day. So I was like, oh my God, every day, back and forth. So it was an hour to get there, hour and a half to get back home. And one day they just pretty much said, like, girl, you don't got no use on this team. Like, pretty much they told me, bitch, you're useless. You're invaluable. So I was like, oh my God, like, I've been trying my hardest to do this. I've been trying my best to, like, set standards and do X, Y, and Z, but it just wasn't a good fit. So got my severance package, moved on, and I actually ended up at Penske Truck Logistics. So Penske, I was down there on Wacomico Avenue. Well, pretty much the very, very bottom of West Baltimore, where West Baltimore and South Baltimore meets, which can be a little bit of a rough neighborhood. But I was very much so in the trenches, as some of the kids might say. But very much so. I was getting there at 5:30 a.m.
Too early.
Getting off of work at too early. Too early. I was getting off of work at about maybe 4, 5, 6 p.m. The office
from 5:30 a.m. No, I'm expecting you're gonna say like I got off though at like 1 p.m., 2 p.m., maybe 12.
2 p.m. was when my shift was supposed to end, but oftentimes there would be so much happening that like you end up helping a customer, or you end up helping a colleague.
12-hour days, and I've been there since 5:30. Count me out.
Go home and do homework, and I have to go home and hop online for a class. So I was working 12-hour days and still having to come home to do homework. Like people do not understand what I have been through in my life. Like they think that it just popped up. Like I have worked so hard my entire life. I would be
Yeah,
going
no.
there 5:30 a.m., sometimes steel toe shoes. Like I said, I worked in the very bottom of Baltimore, Maryland, over west. And most of the time, there would be heroin needles outside of my gate. I have to make sure I'm stumbling over, checking my ground to make sure that I'm okay. And for the first half of my career there, I was the only woman in that entire building. They had
Oh
to
yeah, no, this
revamp
is a
the
lot.
entire building. The building was first, let me give you this tea. The building was created in like 1934. They had no renovations, no major renovations since like the 80s. None of the renovations truly included a women's bathroom because I guess they just thought women didn't do constructing. They had to revamp and redo the entire bathroom because I was there.
You know, you shouldn't have worked there from the beginning. I mean, you know better, you do better, but what? That's
Yes,
crazy.
yes. They had to redo the entire building to include a women's bathroom. The original women's bathroom, you had to go through the male, like the changing room, because a lot of the guys that are inside of the
What?
inside the yard, they have different clothes because they get oily and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
To go through the changing room to get to the break room and the women's
So
bathroom.
how long did you work here? Because it sounds like you had to go immediately.
I worked for Penske probably for about 18 months. I thugged it out for a while there.
That's a long time at
It
5:30
is. I
a.m. and
thugged it
no
out for a
bathroom,
while, and I
basically.
enjoyed it. Surprise! It was so many things I learned. I learned just how to be collaborative. I feel like as a Black woman, I learned how to navigate working with a lot of men. It was so many men all the time, and I mean, men are men, but you just have to navigate and understand how to like work with them, especially if you're a pretty woman. They're gonna always try to do something or try to persuade you, whatever the case may be. But it kind of taught me, like, girl, just be on your stuff. Just
Yeah.
be in tone and just understand exactly what the mission is. We have to get this accomplished. We have to get that accomplished. We have to get this done. This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah. No, it makes
Um,
sense.
I enjoyed it a lot, actually. I got to learn a lot about different things that even just still impact me to this day. Like I could tell a guy right now if he has a trucking business about a day cab, about a sleeper. If you have a dual axle, you have a single axle. Like I learned a
Well,
lot there.
anyone
So it's like,
listening, if they
okay,
need some help, hit her up because she has the knowledge.
I had random life skills just being with different people, and I was in and out the trucks every day, rain, sleet, snow. It never mattered. Like I was in the ground, on the trenches, on Bacomico, getting in our trucks, making sure that people were good all the time.
And I feel like with you explaining the story of just your work experiences and how both of your first jobs weren't necessarily maybe what you thought they would be, but you're still able to look back and be like, I learned something. In the moment, you probably like, get me out of here. This is crazy. And I do feel that way even about the past job I had that was absolutely horrible. Not so much of the work I had to do, the people and the environment made it horrible. And in the moment, I was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, this is crazy. Like, what am I doing here? Like, get me out of here immediately. But now that I'm in the job that I'm in, I'm like, well, I'm glad I have the experiences working at Baltimore City Public Schools because
Mhm.
it bridges the gap for my job I do now because I've always worked in colleges, but working out of middle school and high school, even though it was for actually it was how long was I there? It wasn't a year. It was like 8 9 months. But in that 8 9 months, just because of how I am, I still learned so much and got so many resources and understanding of a K through 12 system that again
Mhm.
helps me to my job now and just like people I met that were decent, that weren't crazy.
And that probably set a foundation for you as well for how you kind of want to navigate through your own careerhood when
Yes.
dealing with different people, being in that environment. It probably set it probably set definitely a
No,
foundation.
it did. It really did. Because now, we're 2 years out of that. Well, like maybe, I don't even know. Time's not real. But I
Time,
can say
I know
now,
time does not exist.
I
It's not.
can say now it for sure did set a foundation because it did make me look at my career differently because since I was just always working in colleges and this was my first job out of a college, but doing very similar work, it made
Mhm.
me realize that there are other options. But then even just for my business, other things of gaps that I could fill or how I can work with different people aside from just colleges. So it for sure did. And it still helps now. Like I said, I have students I still talk to. I do have some people that I still reach out to or that I met through that. So it was
It's awesome.
good skills, not a good time at all, but it was good skills learned.
Understand it was good skills, not a good time. And I think that those
No.
experiences kind of help shape us even more. When you don't enjoy it, but you love the residual that comes from it. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's so great.
Yeah. And I think that like for career stuff, nobody's job are you going to love everything about it, even if you have your dream job. But for people now that are job searching or that have been laid off, because that's still happening a lot, or just you're in an unhappy place with your job, I just feel like the best thing that nobody likes to hear, but it really is the truth, is that like it is going to get better and you're
Yeah,
going to get to where you need to be based off of this
absolutely.
experience. But in the
Yeah.
moment, you are like, please, Lord, this is ridiculous. Why am I here?
No, I 1000% get that.
Because even one of my friends now is like job searching, and it's been a little rough. I mean, I know multiple people job searching, but this person is particular comes to mind, and it's been hard because I mean, you don't want to keep getting rejection after rejection, especially when you've been working for a few years and you're getting up in your career, like mid level, almost senior level. Like you have a degree, you know that you have skills, and you were doing a job, but then you get fired, laid off, whatever the situation is, and you can't
Absolutely.
find a job. It does feel defeating because you need a job to
Yeah.
make money, to live, to pay for these responsibilities we don't want.
Exactly. I'm like, it feels discouraging because you feel like, why is the world against me? I have all these skills. I went through all these accolades.
Exactly.
I checked off the list. I did what they said I was supposed to do. I went to school. I got the degree. Why don't I have a job? Why can't they pay me when I'm supposed to pay for my bills? So yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
And
It's definitely
what I wonder from like all the conversations that I have with people that I've met, that I haven't met, that are my actual friends, that are my students, whatever, on my podcast, or even just in passing at events, everybody says the same thing. So
Mhm.
what will be the change? Like that's where I get like for not I don't get frustrated. That's where I get like something's got to give. Like
That's good.
everybody is saying the same thing, but nothing's changing, and
Yeah.
we are working to make change by having platforms that talk about stuff like this. But
Mhm.
the reality is, right now, I'm not I don't want to say like I guess the first thing that came to mind is like government official, because I'm thinking like a lot of the things that we don't like about adulting are implemented from rules and regulations that came from when society in the world was created. So like
So it's
please,
based on, I'm not gonna say a fictitious thought of what society should be, but it's kind of outdated. You know,
very
book.
outdated.
So you want to be an adult, you can check me out on adultwannabe.com. But in my book, I talk about, how you want to navigate as an adult with your career. And I don't ever try to make people feel pressure to go to college because I just feel like college is not for everyone. I
No,
understand that, they say the way to go is you got to go to school, you got to get a degree, da da da. But I often feel like that's how like Gen X was like pressured. I feel like a lot of our parents are Gen X and they were pressured by our grandparents, who had to live through the civil rights movement, who had to live through a lot of traumatizing experiences, and they wanted to set their kids up for security, which I understand and respect. But I think at this point in our lives, like it's okay to understand that Black women and Black men can be entrepreneurs and it's okay. They can create businesses. They can be, real estate moguls. They can do so many different things that don't have to just be conformed to just being, hey, I went to school for accounting, so now I'm an accountant. I'm going to be an accountant for 40 years. I'm going
yeah,
to retire, and that's it. It's so many different avenues. And I feel like a lot of our counterparts are provided those avenues and provided the creative liberty to understand they had the option to do a lot of different things because their parents have said,
yeah,
hey, if you want to go to school, cool. If you don't want to go to school, here's your trust fund for XYZ dollars. So whatever you want to invest your life in, you can go ahead and do that. But I
yeah.
think it's important for our community to understand that although we might not have the same type of resources that were provided or allotted to a lot of our counterparts, it doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to pursue those things. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes,
I
I
think it's
agree for sure. And college isn't for everybody at all. And I think
beautiful.
that just with the price ticket of college right now, oh my God,
Baby, I'm
one,
in debt.
it's not a situation that's good for
No.
any 18, 19-year-old to set themselves up with leaving in 4 years with 50,000 plus dollars of debt. So that's why I'm just like always
50,000
so
times
back
two
and
for some of
forth.
us, 50,000 times four for some of us who went to grad school. It's a lot of money that's just been invested into education that, I mean, they provide to other aids, other needs, other countries. But when it comes down to living up to the word of, hey, you're going to help out your college graduates and reimburse them for school, like that just seems to just,
Yeah.
get overlooked.
Yeah.
Also, that's the working class that keeps the society going. So it's like, why are you not trying to invest in that so that the work that they put in on the back end can be compensated? Because this is what they did for us to continue to thrive in society. Society has to live off the fact of ingenuity, new ideas, new thoughts, innovation. You can't just live in a society that's just stagnant in the way they, hey, we did things like this in 1987. We're going to continue to do things like this. We have thoughts and we have leaders and we have generational people that can truly make a difference. And the thoughts that come from their minds, oftentimes, if it wasn't for the education and or the experiences they went through, that wouldn't even cultivate in the first place. So it's like, you're not going to recompensate these people for helping society continue to elevate?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I think like college should be an option, but it should not be as expensive. And we just need
It
to
should not be as expensive, baby.
rework the whole system because it just should not cost that much. And people go to school because they're thinking, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to be able to pay this off. The reality is, most people cannot. Or if you do, you're sacrificing a lot to become student loan debt free or pay off your debt from school, however that accumulated, which is commendable. Like, that is great that you're like, okay, I know that right now I'm going to have to sacrifice for 2 years so that this can be gone or whatever it is. But it just something has got to give. And on the other side, I mean, I see this from my students at work that like if they don't go to college, they don't feel like they have a equitable thing that's going to get them money for a livable wage. Like, yes, you can go to McDonald's, you can go to Wendy's, you can go to a clothing store or something like that. But when you're thinking that they didn't go to college, so how do they get certain skills to get their career trajectory started so that they can make a salary? Because even talking to my students about like, you can get paid a salary at a job, they're like, what's a salary? Like, I'm getting paid hourly at like Krispy Kreme, so like that sounds cool to me because I'm making a decent amount of money. I'm like, no, you would want to aim for like a salary job, or at least hourly with benefits or retirement, like PTO, sick time, dental insurance, medical insurance. And they're kind of like, well, why? And I'm like, your whys are valid because we shouldn't have to be paying for this to live, but this is the
what
way
we're
that this works.
But this is how the world works. And I think that at that age, I understand the why. I understand that you don't understand. I understand that they don't understand why this has to happen in this type of format.
Yes.
And especially in this new age, like, you have, I feel like even in our age, like, we had access to Facebook, MySpace, like we had Google. Like, I feel like we weren't cavemen,
MySpace,
but we were, the maybe the entry point, maybe like the inaugural, group. Millennials were kind of just inaugural into the fact of social media, embracing the internet, using this as a primary resource for how we're going to live our life and to find information. So they have this like in the back of their hand. Like, this has always been given to them. So they're seeing people in Nicaragua, they're seeing people in India, they're seeing people in a variety of places just living their lives freely. And they're like, well, why is this not happening for us here in the US? Like,
yeah. And also just on social media overall, something when you're saying that made me think too is that people post what they want you to see on social media. And I think that for Gen Z, like growing up with it,
they talk about it.
They don't have like a concept of like, okay, I see Amber always posting all this positive stuff, so like there's nothing wrong in her life. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm posting inspiration for other people, and I don't post stuff that is negatively affecting me in the way that is making you think that I'm going through something negative or bad.
Right.
So I feel like social media is great because you meet people. Like, that's how I met you. That's how I met a lot of people that are guests on the podcast, people that I met at events. I've gotten a lot of opportunities from social media. But when we have, or not we, but when people have not had social media, that becomes your reality. And I think that because we have seen life without social media, we don't take everything on social media for face value, or we don't just believe everything we see on social media. We're like, okay, they posted this, that's cool, but like there's other stuff going on. Exactly. But they see it and they're like, oh my God, this is real, like whatever, but some things are not real, especially on TikTok. People make
things are not real
all the time.
And the thing is, the internet is not always real. And I think, like, to your point, because we never always had it, we recognize that things are not always real. you said that you post your best moments. And I think that's what social media is for. Like, I know that people might use it as a platform to tell some of their stories that might include pain, but I think for the most part, people are showcasing the best parts of their life. No one's going to say, damn, girl, I got this eviction status the other day. No one's going to post that. No one's going to post that. Like, they want people to see the best things that happen to them and not the real things that happen to them. So it makes it hard to relate. It makes it hard to like understand. It's like, damn, like real life is happening every single day for when it's an adult. But because there's such a like influx of this perfection on social media, hey, I am, you know, a baddie that got to go on a jet today, and I got a boyfriend that gives me $50,000 because he just loves me, and I got da-da-da. Like, you know, that's just not the reality for a lot of people. No. It might be a reality for a very small fraction of humans, but for working day Americans, like that's not what's going on. Like, that's just not it.
Like, how are the people that are social media influencers constantly posting what to us as the consumer of their content seems like almost everything in their life, or just like the grocery store videos, like the get ready with me videos, because the day in the life, like they're taking that camera basically what seems like to us everywhere and then editing it. I'm like, I can barely remember to go live when I'm recording the podcast. Like, I will record stuff and never post it because I forget or I just don't have the time. So like, how are they even doing it is my question always, because I'm like, this is crazy.
It's insane. The thing is, I hate recording content. I hate doing content, but I know I have to do it so that it matters, so they can get an impact, so they can get the reactions, the reels, the views. Like, I understand, like, there is a lot of science. There's a lot of science behind content. Like, for content creators, the ones that are super like diligent with it, the ones that are consistent, I commend them because it's so much work behind it. Like, it's cute when you're going around just filming stuff, but they don't understand that there is strategy.
Yeah, for sure. That's a work in progress. I record a lot of stuff. Does it always make it right when I've recorded it? No, but it will get there someday. Someday.
If you ever need help, girl, let me know. I will help you strategize.
Yes, I remember you said, because the marketing, you were like, this is wonderful. This is my job. I will help. Yes, whatever.
Let me help. I will help you organize this. I'll tell you when you need to post this, when not to post it. Let me know.
And then before we wrap up, I do want you to talk a little bit more about Adult Wannabe. Like, what do you offer for the people? What can they reach out to you for? What is it going to be doing in the future? Anything like that? Things you have done previously with it?
Yeah, so as you know, Adult Wannabe is my brand name, but I have a book out called So You Want to Be an Adult? Yes. It's a question. So You Want to Be an Adult? It's geared at people ages 17 to 103. I figured by the time you're 103, you probably know how to be an adult. But it talks about a lot of the nuances of navigating adulthood. I talk about building credit. I talk about being the bigger person. I talk about, you know, moving out of your parents' house for the first time. I talk about paying your bills. I talk about going back to school, whether, you know, you're going back to school as an adult and or if you're going back to school or trying to pursue school as a high school graduate. I try to hit on a lot of things that impacted me personally that I wish that I had some type of navigation with that just wasn't available. And I kind of just had to wing it. And by the grace of God, I was able to wing it in a good way. You know, but I feel like for a lot of people, they might not have that agility. So I want to make sure, like, hey, especially I'm from Baltimore. So it's like, I understand. I'm from Baltimore, but I currently live in Prince George's County. Being there, and I already wrote my book before I moved to Prince George's, I recognize how many resources are available to certain communities that aren't allotted to Baltimore for whatever reason, for whatever, like we kind of mentioned, for whatever the powers above us, whatever powers may be, they do not provide Baltimore with the sufficient resources for the people and the residents to be successful. And that's just kind of what it is. And that's not on, you know, Mayor Scott. This is like a higher thing. Like, this is something that's intentional done to us based on, like, you know, the historic of just what's been happening in Baltimore our entire lives, based on gerrymandering, changing, you know, the demographics for Randallstown in 1950 are not the demographics from Randallstown today. The demographics that's, you know, like kind of near 32nd Street, that's not the demographics today. Like, things have progressively changed, and they might not have changed in the way that the powers that be might have wanted. So it's like, I feel like Baltimore is a stunted city because they don't invest in us the way they're supposed to. And because
Yeah.
because I'm from there, it bothers me because I've been other places and I recognize that other communities are cared for. I recognize that other communities are nurtured, and to see that our community is just so much so, avoided and or kind of overlooked based on whatever issue. I made it a point that, if I'm gonna write a book, I want to write a book that's available for my community they can get access to. Like
Yeah.
my book, like I said, it's called So You Want to Be an Adult. I want to have it installed. I want to be able to have it, listed inside of any of the local jails. I want to be able to have it inside of any of the adult learning centers. There is a little bit of cursing, so I don't know how that's going to work with some of the high schools. But I mean, they curse anyway. I just want to be able to just share whatever knowledge I have. I'm like, they ran Huckleberry Finn. They said the N word in there. They can't hear damn.
No, the kids these days, and that's what when you're talking about Baltimore too. Like, I do feel like from working with the youth that they don't realize necessarily that they're in an under-resourced city, but there are things that they do or engage in or say or ways that they interact that, to me, knowing and being in education and just in different cities, that they are under-resourced and it's not their fault the way that they show up sometimes, but people try to just like blame them or write them off, but it's not their fault that they're showing up this way. It's because their school does not have any money to be providing X, Y, and Z that this school right across at the county is doing.
Exactly. And it's like, if I can be someone, a lot of people in my family, oh, you don't want to make it out. I hate that. That bothers me. I don't want to be that. Because I feel like there's ample opportunity for all of us to do this exact same thing that I've done, whether in the exact same notion or on your own accord and however you want to freak it and make it your own thing. Like, there is opportunity and success for everybody. And I feel like those opportunities aren't presented because people aren't allotted the resources in order to have them achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. And that was really that was really the moving force behind me writing this book. I'm like, I want to have my books, like I said, I want to have my books inside of jails. I want to have my books inside of adult learning centers. I want them to be inside of alternative places that people might not even necessarily think about, because I think that everyone should have an opportunity to just learn different knowledge on how to, hey, your mom might not have taught you things. Like, I feel like that's a common thing. Like, hey, my mom never taught me how to do X, Y, and Z. It's a lot of our parents that didn't teach us how to do things because they didn't know. And you cannot fault your parents for not knowing things. Like, they did not know. But if you know something and you can share it with people, then why not? And that's really why I wrote my book. Because I don't want to gatekeep. I want everybody to win. Like, I'm not a hater. Like, I want everyone to win, honestly. Because I feel like this is how you
graduate for everybody to win. Like, everybody can be doing well.
To win. Like, there's room for everybody. There's room for everybody to win. Honestly.
Yes. And I completely forgot another episode that I've recorded to tell the guests that they can do this. But you have an opportunity to ask me a question as well. It can be about anything, the Adulting Queen, life, my adulting journey, whatever.
Okay. What has been one of the most rewarding things that you've learned in your adulting journey? And what has been one of the most challenging things that you've learned throughout your adulting journey?
You were ready, even though I didn't even tell you this before. Those are good.
Baby, I went to school for journalism. I'm gonna come with a question.
That's true. Most rewarding, I would say my friendships and the things that I've been able to just like do and experience in life this far. So my friendships, because I do have a lot of friends, but I also have a lot of lifelong friends. So I know people are like, oh, when people have so many friends, like, how are you really friends? Like, how do you keep connections? Blah, 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 blah. But I do have a lot of close, lifelong, we've been friends for 10 plus years, middle school, high school, college. Like, they've been there from that period of time, which was a very transitional period, obviously not knowing it then, but to have friends from middle school, high school, college, to me, it really
it's a blessing.
Is impactful because I learned people don't have that. And then with the part of like just the things I've experienced too, because when the pandemic happened, I didn't feel like I had missed out on anything in life. And to me, that was a good feeling, because I know that a lot of people were like, woulda, shoulda, coulda, when we're back open, I'm going to do this because I waited so long, or people were experiencing this for the first time. after we were getting through that pandemic part. And I didn't feel like at that point I had missed out on anything in life. So I feel like just the experience that I've had and the opportunities and things that I've done, I felt good about and still do feel good about for adulting. So that's pretty rewarding.
Yay.
Thank you for the claps. I love it. And then the most challenging thing, Lord, every day there is something. I
It's
think
a bill due every day, baby.
so.
Every day it's a bill. Damn.
I think the most challenging thing for me right now is money and paying off debt and just like getting to a point of like feeling good about where I'm at financially, because I like, again, I'm only responsible for myself. So sometimes I make the best choices. No, but I'm only responsible for myself. So I know that I can do that now because I like am just responsible for myself. But I feel like it's a challenge because we've seen things just get so expensive. Like we're not getting a break on anything really. There's always something popping up. So I feel like that's really challenging. But the balance for me is that I just have the mindset and know that everything's always going to work itself out, and I'm on my journey, and this is my journey. So like it's not always going to be this way, but the challenging part is like, well, when is it not going to be this way? Because every day is something. Every day is something.
Girl, I get it. Every day it's something. I think you kind of accept the challenges. So you know, every day is something. I'm just gonna jump around and just get through it.
But there was something I was saying before the Wi-Fi cut us off. We were talking about it's always something.
It's always something, but we're always persevering. And I feel like, you know, I appreciate you for bringing me onto your platform. You know, I love your platform. You know, I stalked you down to get this to even happen. So I appreciate you for even believing in me and allowing for me to talk to your viewers and your audience. You know, I'm trying to myself just break out a little bit more. I don't think I'm an introvert, but I know that I can be very, very shy when it comes to like my talents and things I want to share. But for 2025, I put it on my mission and like my vision board to kind of just go hard with it, because I think that I have things that the world needs to hear. The South has something to say. That's how I feel. I have something to say, and I think they got to hear it. So I appreciate you for even allowing me this opportunity. 1000%.
No, of course. Thank you for coming on. I mean, yes, I do appreciate that you found me. And two, I appreciate that we are doing similar things, because I often say I don't find people that are doing something like what I'm doing. They're just doing like one avenue of adulting, which is fine, but it's not holistic and it's not conversational. It's like talking at you of like, do this, do that. And that's not what I do. I give tips on certain stuff, but I'm not telling you do this or do that. I'm telling you figure it out for yourself.
For sure. I feel like that's all adulting is. We all got to figure it out for ourselves. But having that push, a little bit of notion, guidance, it goes a long way.
Yes,
it truly goes
for sure
a long
does.
Way. And even circling back to your first question, you asked me at what age. When I first started working for that first job with Dina and Stephanie, they pushed me a long way. You know, they were already. I was in my 20s. Stephanie was in her 30s. Dina was in her 40s. So we were all three minority women, but just on different playing fields for what's happening in our lives. So to be able to communicate and talk to them and just be like a real woman and like have the free floor to just, hey, X, Y, and Z. This is how I feel about this. This is how I feel about that. I think it went a long way. And I think that it kind of helps up. It set the foundation for how I kind of want to move forward being a woman, because they will always tell me like, hey, baby girl, you're not an adult yet. Just wait till this happens. You're not an adult yet. Because some of them have already went through divorces. They were already going through their own navigations of life. So they had been through life. I was fresh out the gate, like out of college. I'm fresh. I'm spunky. I'm ready to get this stuff popping. Like I want to see what's going on. And we would just be having the realest conversations. And I think that really, you know, set the tone for me with, you know, other women in adulthood, but I really enjoyed it. It really helped me, you know, mold me, honestly. Yeah. I think about adulthood, how I think about being a woman, you know, things that you got to see from other people. You know, you might hear the phrase, you know, you don't have to go through it if you see it. And I got to see things that other women went through at such an older age than, well, not say older, but, you know, they at such a mature age. older than me. So yeah, they had a lot of life experience. And so I'm witnessing this in real time. I'm taking mental notes. Like, I probably should be like, this is what's happening. Like, I probably shouldn't do this with my life, or I probably should do this. Like, they're inspiring me in so many different ways. Like, that first job, and the thing is, gag, Dina was my ex-boyfriend's mama. So I had got that job. So I was so thankful because, baby, she was trying to find a
Connections,
job after college.
networking.
She could not do it. And that changed my whole life. And the thing is, the apartments that we worked at, they ended up being my first apartment to live in. So it's like, it's so funny how this God just works in so many different ways. Like, the opportunities that happen from just like the butterfly effect, you meet one person and it turns into so many different things. That's why I'll never invalidate any of my experiences as a young adult, because a lot of them had meaning, because they had purpose, because they put me in different positions.
Yes,
100%.
I for sure agree with that. And again, thank you so much for being here. Let our listeners know once more where they can find you on social media and how they can get in contact with you.
Yes, listeners, if you are here, I appreciate you for still being here. You can find me at www.adultwannabe, adultwannabe.com, as well as our social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, Adult Wannabe, and TikTok, because I do have a few TikToks. So, yes, you might see that it hasn't been active, but don't worry about that, baby. We have it back on the board. We're about to get some more content going. So,
but thank you so much again.